Private equity is not of the business of firing founders. Private equity are not management company. They are growth companies. You start confusing what's urgent with what's important. And that's a huge, huge, huge problem at that stage. You're becoming the bottleneck. Exhaustion in the sense that you now spending so much time in the company that you have no more time to work on the company where your value actually is.
What one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today? Hey, and welcome to another episode of the Business Growth Show. I'm your host, Athin Cassiotis, and today I have a powerful guest. His name is Alexis Sikorsky. He is a strategic advisor to founders focused on scaling fast and exiting strong. With 100 million plus private equity exit from his company, New Access, he brings real-world experience in building, scaling, and selling businesses. Author of Cashing Out, he developed the Apex framework, assess, plan, execute, exit to guide founders towards successful exits. And today he works with growth stage companies to unlock value, increase cash flow, and prepare for private equity, helping leaders build businesses that lead to lasting freedom. Welcome, Alexis, and thank you for being on the Business Growth Show.
Thank you, Ethan, for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome, mate. I'm sure it's going to be awesome and impactful for everyone watching and listening today. And you are a successful entrepreneur. So for those people who don't know who you are, please introduce yourself by telling us a little bit more about you and your journey.
Okay, so I'm gonna do the short version, and if you have question, I'll develop whatever you need. Started a software company in Geneva, Switzerland in 2000. Started it as bespoke internet development company. So 2000 is the time when the internet goes from being a presentation layer to becoming an application layer, just to simplify. So I did that for 3 years. 3 years later, we acquired the source code of a software company called Logical Access, and this was an electronic document management system for private banks. So this company got bankrupt. We acquired the source code and all the client contract in a distressed buyout. And so since then, we grew the company from 2003 to 2008 to become a specialized banking software company where we would do everything front end from a bank. So that's document management, know your customer, anti-money laundering, onboarding, portfolio management, etc., etc. Fast track to 2007, companies 10, 12 million revenue, super profitable. I'm the smartest entrepreneur of the world. I'm like, I don't have a penny in my bank account because I spent everything, and we just had 4 or 5 years of fantastic growth. What can go wrong in a banking software company in 2007, right? Then come 2008, global financial crisis, and in one day I lost 75% of my customers. So turned out I was not as smart as I thought I was. By the way, that's a sentence that I used many, many, many times in my life. And after 2008, there is 4 or 5 years of what I call the grind, which is the not fun years when you have to fire 75% of the company. And, like your listeners will know that when you have a family company, at the time we were like somewhere around 100 employees, and you know them all, right? They're your family, and you know their wives, their husbands, their kids. Like it's really, really tough times. Anyway, survived to till 2014, basically mortgaging my house, and every month asking yourself, like, are you in a situation of good money chasing bad money? Should we fold? But just because I'm stubborn, and also because I really, really don't know anything else than being an entrepreneur, I hanged in there. And in 2014, we could say with some creative accounting that the company was back to break-even-ish, let's say. back to around 10 million revenue. And that's when I got the phone call from the private equity. If you're an entrepreneur, you know you get phone calls from private equity roughly twice a week. You never answer because it's usually bullshit. But this one, I was working with my brother at the time. My brother told me, you know what, you should talk to these people. They are French, they know your culture. They started their private equity by selling a fintech company, so they know you. Universe, talk to them. So, okay, talk to them. And next week they were come from Paris to visit me in Geneva. And for some reason, pure luck, I decided I'm going to be super honest with them. I'd say, listen, I have no time or energy for bullshit. So I tell you, this is exactly my situation. I'm exhausted. And I was like, after like 5, 6 years of pure grind, I was really, really exhausted. I said, I was super, super happy to sell. But not right now. Because right now my company is break even, has no value. I'll make you a deal. You come back in 2 years. In 2 years, I'll be back with fantastic EBITDA and profitability, and I'll sell to you right there. And I won't go to a competitive process. Just like make me a decent offer in 2 years, and I'll sell to you. And they say, yeah, thank you. That's a very generous offer, but we're not going to do that. We're going to do something a little bit different. I say, okay. Then you're going to go home. You're going to make a business plan and you're going to tell us exactly where you think you're going to be in 2 years. I said, okay. So I went home, made a business plan that was somewhere between uber optimistic and La La Land, which is what you should do, by the way, when you build a business plan for private equity. That piece of advice I give to all my clients and everybody that's listening, pretty much. Don't lie a dollar about the past because they will find it. But when you talk about the future, you are allowed to be as optimistic and as a dreamer as you want to be. That's part of the game. So I came with this business plan. I think I was like, I don't know, 2.5 or 3 million EBITDA in 2 years for a company who's been losing money for 6 years, like super optimistic. And they came, they look and say, okay, so this is the deal we're offering. We're going to buy the company now. We're going to pay 11 times your number in 2 years, and we're going to pay you 85% cash and 15% earnout. And that's when I start picking up my phone and calling my friend to see if somebody was playing a practical joke on me or something. But no, that was a proper offer. Obviously, it was an offer that was too good. Well, they basically made me an offer I couldn't refuse. Next step was have to have a severed horse head in my bed or something. So really, I took the offer. Then we went to the 6 months of due diligence that if people are interested, I could talk a lot about that. Call it the 6 months colonoscopy. And after that, signed the deal, stayed as CEO. So the deal happened early 2015. 2017, I ended up making more money with the 15% earnouts that I made with the 85% cash. Then stayed on board till 2019, 2020 at the CEO. At that point, we did an acquisition of a company that was twice our size. So basically bringing the company to 15 million revenue at that time to 50. And when I met with the CEO, that I did the integration of the acquisition, which is and I'm the CEO. I put him head of sales, CEO of the company we acquired. And like I was meeting with him every week, and that was ridiculous. I went to see the private equity, say, listen, that makes no sense. This guy is 10 years older than me, has experience in an international group. He speaks Swiss German, which in Switzerland is an important skill. This ridiculous. He should be the CEO, not me. And I said, you put me as chairman and you make him the CEO, which is what they did. They chairman me. By the way, Athin, is if anybody ever offer you the job as chairman, take it. It's the best job of the world. Same salary, zero responsibility. Instead of working 16 hours per day, you work half a day per month. It's the best job in the world. I did that for another couple of years. And 2019, I decided it was time to have a big midlife crisis. So new country, new wife, new kids, new new occupation. So I told them, listen, would you mind buying my share back? And they made me a very, very, very generous offer. And long story short, in 2023, I think they sold the company at a very, very, very high multiple. So everybody wins. I win because I made a lot of money. All the guys who started the company, all the early employees, all end up making millions, which was really made me really, really happy. And so that's the end of the first chapter. So 2019, I take 2, 3 years of pure retirement, like literally traveling the world and scratching my balls in front of the TV, like literally do nothing for 2, 3 years. And after that, I was starting to feel a little bit bored. So I started an executive MBA in Oxford here in London. I've moved to London at that time. And in the executive MBA, I started talking to founders because a good third of the cohorts are founders in either startup or family businesses. And I'm like, fuck, they're making the exact same mistake I made my whole life. And I did a little mental exercise that I also recommend people to do when you reach a certain age. It's very interesting. It's basically calculate the cost of your mistakes. So like it's mental exercise. We'll start new access still in 2000, but with the experience I have now. What's the total cost of my fuck ups? Basically mistakes by decision, bad decisions. And I'm not talking like anticipating the global financial crisis, just like having the experience. And the number I came with was 50 million in 5 years. So that's the total cost. I would have sold 50 million more and 5 years earlier if I made only good decision or at least better informed decision. So I start talking to founders, basically tell them if you talk to me, you can save 5 years and 50 million, which is a pretty good pitch. They appreciated that. And then I started saying, okay, I can help 10 founders per year. And how do I help more? And that's when I decided to write the book that I think give a little bit of an insight of what are the steps to grow and sold your company. I'm going to stop that. I apologize. I know I was too long.
That was awesome, Alexis. I love the background of that, with the journey of where you were initially and then the ups and downs. And a lot of people don't talk about that enough, right? Like you always hear about the big exit or, the success and the lifestyle, but you don't hear about like, struggling to meet ends and all, like the stress and all that. So I think it was great for people to hear the early stages and you kept in there, right? I think that's the big part because we have to go through that to learn. And then, obviously, how you structured the deal was great, earning more from the earnout 15% than than the actual cash part and the long due diligence process. I think there's a lot we can delve into here, and I agree. I'm the same where there's a lot of things about business that why go through the 10 years and all the problems when you can do a lot less problems and have someone to help you, like yourself out there to get to that point. So from there's a lot of businesses out there, right? And obviously it depends, service, product, tech, there's a lot of variety of types of businesses. But from what you're seeing, right, what's the ceiling? Because I think from my eyes, the level of the business only grows to the level of the business owner, right? The entrepreneur there. And what are you seeing is I guess the struggle from people, whether they're at the startup phase or they're already going, but they're not really getting to where they need to be. What do you think is the biggest challenge there, what they need to change? Yeah.
Interesting, Ethan, you asking this question because that's exactly what I'm working on right now, and that's going to be the topic of my second book. Um, so there is no ceiling per se, and I very respectfully slightly disagree with you saying that it's very much business and market dependent. I think it's pretty universal actually, whether you're a SaaS provider, and I'm talking right now to somebody who's built better electricity grid. Talking to somebody who has medical clinics in London. I'm talking to somebody who's launching a hydration drink. And basically, the problems are the same. They just can come at slightly different stages, but they're pretty similar. And there is one pivotal moment. And For simplicity, I call it the 10 million ditch, but it happens somewhere between 5 and 15 million in general. And that's not a ceiling, but that tends to be a plateau. And I think it tends to be a plateau for three reasons that are all linked. It's basically the moment where the founders, who was a fantastic asset to that point, start to become a liability. And at that point, you're hitting three big roadblocks at the same time, or roughly the same time. The first one is, I call it founder's exhaustion, but not exhaustion in the like new age work lifestyle balance bullshit. Exhaustion in the sense that you now spending so much time in the company that you have no more time to work on the company where your value actually is. Other way of putting that, and I use that a lot, is you start confusing what's urgent with what's important. And that's a huge, huge, huge problem at that stage. You're becoming the bottleneck, right? And that's actually, it's a pretty easy fix. It seems to be unsurmountable, but with the right tool, is actually a pretty easy fix. The second roadblock you're hitting is your company so far has been friends and family, people you know, lots of informal decision, lots of informal discussion. And you reach the point where you start to put systems in place. I use systems instead of processes because processes make me want to puke, but it's system processes, software. And usually the first time you actually see it is your numbers. To run a company even at 5 million, you need monthly financial reporting that is useful. So whether you have it quarterly, you're screwed, it's too late, or you get 50 pages of Excel every month that you don't really know how to use, same problem. You need 10, 15 numbers every month that you can follow, and you need to start budgeting and all that stuff. But then you have the same with, like, if you're a tech company with your tech, if you are something that's the least sexy in the world, but people tend to overlook, is everything supply chain related. Like well, the hydration company, now we're hitting like supply chain issue. How do we produce, distribute, all that stuff, which is absolutely not sexy. You start to need proper system and processes in place. And the third roadblock, which is the hardest to fix, is you reach a point where you need C-level people, but you cannot afford C-level people. First example, again, CFO. Like your cousin who's been doing your accounting from day one is probably a very, very good accountant. And I'm not talking about firing him, but he's not the one who's going to talk to you about capital allocation, about debt ratios, about all the stuff that you need a CFO for. It's not the one who's going to get you prepared for your first big M&A move, or buying your competition, or buying adjacent, all that stuff. So you start needing a CFO. And that's the same with CTO, COO, head of marketing, head of sales, all the stuff that you've been doing yourself, or with people who are not A players, because usually at the beginning you cannot afford A players. It's a plateau. It's not a ceiling. I don't know if you know what I mean. All that are fixable.
Yeah, definitely. No, I love that. It's so interesting, isn't it? Where people, like you said, the quick fixes there. It's like, just get someone externally like yourself, right? Going, this is what you need to focus on. Get rid of all the noise right there. And then it's getting the right people, like you said, to help with the strategy side there, and going, what are we actually doing that's going to help you get to that next level? Because you don't know what you don't know a lot of the time. So I love that side of there. And yeah, and just the objective, right? Because when you're in it, you know how it is. It's like you don't really see what's on the outside. So someone that's external sees a lot more, just because you're in the day to day. So I agree. It's so important.
So two things on that. Sorry to interrupt. Yes, getting an advisor is ideal, but you don't necessarily need that. I'm not making myself indispensable. First of all, you have tools you can use without an advisor. I give you an example. The first thing is how to fix the bottleneck. And that I have a methodology that you absolutely don't need me to apply. And I give it for free. For a week, at the end of every day, super annoying, you write a list of everything you did every day. You do that for a week and you come with a list that like it's going to be 50 items long or 100 items long. And then next to each, you mark the one you're uniquely qualified to do. Not the ones you don't have somebody to delegate, not the one you'll do better than the people you delegate, the one you're uniquely qualified to do. I give you an example. What we're doing today, the two of us who are uniquely qualified to do. Because if you message me and I say, oh, yeah, it's my head of sales who's going to do the podcast, you're going to say, fuck you, it's you I want. And same with you. You say, oh, by the way, I'm not going to be the interviewer, but my assistant is going to interview you. I was going to say, no, I'm not going to do the podcast. So that's the things who are uniquely qualified to do. And the bigger the company, the smaller the list become. And if you go all the way to a CEO of a publicly listed company, basically the only thing he or she is uniquely qualified to do is investor relationship, right? Because same, when you talk to JP Morgan, who hold 5% of your company, they want to talk to the CEO. You cannot sell the CFO to do that. You need the CEO. Even if you don't bring tons of value in that meeting, you need to be there. So that's an example. And also about what you said about the outside look, absolutely. And you know what? Don't need a rock star to have ideas and have a good look. And there's something that I'm amazed. Most people I've met who've been successful entrepreneurs, if not all, are really, really ready to mentor and help younger entrepreneurs. All you have to do is ask. You don't even need to pay money. Like you have somebody in your entourage, in your family, in your friends that been there, done that. Just ask. It's very hard to say no. I know because I have dozens of kids who say, "Oh, can you help me with my startup?" Me, it's easier because I don't do startups. Because startup, it's all about fundraising, and for personal reason, I despise fundraising, and I don't bring tons of value in there. Same with lifestyle business. I don't bring tons of value because it's all about operational efficiency and tax optimization, which is two areas I suck. So, but yeah, get free help. It's easy.
Yeah, no, awesome points. I love that. And I guess let's talk a little bit more around the exit, right? Because I always say set up the business from the start as if you're going to exit, right? Because then you'll put in the systems like you were talking about and everything from the start. Otherwise, you create a lifestyle business which is not going to get you there, from the start. So you're planning for success. But I think a lot of people don't get to the exit, right? Or they get to a point where the business is not set up and it's going to take them a long time and everything like that to do that. So let's say you talked about that 5 to 15 million range, right there, and the solutions that you've got to put in place. So we've gone past that now. Let's say, right, we've solved a lot of these problems. We've got the right C-suite person, whether it's fractional or whatever, right, to help us there, to get us to where we need to be. We're on the path to growth and we're looking for an exit now. What are some of the key things that we need to be putting in place or thinking about so that we do get the exit for the best possible value and what to watch out for, in that process? Yeah.
So basically, when you pass that plateau, you already did a lot of the work. Because what the private equity, and I specialize in private equity, but strategic is not going to be massively different. It's going to be a little bit different. But what private equity will look like is how much of a bottleneck the founder is and what happens if the founder leaves. I'm going to just take a second to tackle a very wrong belief about private equity. Private equity is not of the business of firing founders. Private equity are not management company. They are growth company. They are investment company. So unless you fuck up, they're not going to fire you. Just a little. And I know I'll get 20 messages of people to say, yeah, but the PE fired me. Yeah, probably you fucked up. They usually don't fire you because they believe in you, right? They invested in your company. They believe in you. So one of the things they're going to look is, will the business survive the founder and is the founder a bottleneck? So we already tackled that, right? So second, they're going to look at system and processes, and they're going to look at durability. Like, can I hit it with a hammer and everything fall apart? or is it sustainable? Can I double the revenue? What happens if I double the revenue? This is like little war games we do with our clients. So, okay, now you making 10 million and I come with a magic wand and next month we do 20 million. What's breaking? That kind of stuff. It's the stuff that private equity is going to look. System, they're going to look at finance. They're going to look at finance hard. So are my finances really clean? Usually the answer is no. So that there is a little work to do. And all that I talk from experience because none of what I'm saying I did actually, right? That's like, it's hindsight. I'm playing last week lottery number right there because I didn't do any of that. But I got super lucky. So you did a big part of it. Now the question is, how do I prepare for an actual exit? An exit preparation is not a 10-year process. It's an 18 months to 2 years process. So by the time you decide I'm considering selling to the time you're in a beach drinking daiquiris, there's 24 months, give or take, 18 to 24 months. And there are steps. So first step is define your number. What's your number? Everybody has a number. Most people are wrong about their numbers, by the way, but what's the amount of money I need on my bank account to stop working and to do only stuff that I would like to do and that I enjoy doing, but I have a roof on my kid's head, private school is paid, etc. So what's my number? By the way, the number is pretty universal. Second step is we sure the company is prepared. Then you do what I call dress the bride. I got in trouble with my British publisher for using that term. They say it's not politically correct, so I have to say dress the bride or the groom. Make your company look pretty to private equity. That goes anywhere from using the proper buzzword to be sure you calculate what they call a nominal EBITDA. You think a private equity will buy you EBITDA. They don't. They buy what they call nominal EBITDA, which is a recalculated EBITDA of what happens after the sale. If you know that and you can calculate that for them, you show them that you're not just going to be bullied around. You come with a number, you don't let them come with a number, shows that you know how to calculate a valuation, you know how to calculate a multiple, you know the multiples in your industry, you know if your multiple in your industry is 10x and you want 12x, you're capable of explaining why. Not like that, I want 12x. You have a story behind, and then you need to choose the right private equity. That's super, super important. And then there is the actual sell process that I usually run that for my client because that's a little bit technical. And the way I do it, it's actually pretty simple. First of all, I make a deck. Decks are utterly unimportant. Content of a deck is a little more important. People spend so much time thinking decks are important. For a LBO or a P exit, decks are utterly unimportant. But still, you need to send them a few information. You have to keep in mind that these guys are out there buying, right? They're like hunters with a big gun, and you say, "I have a bear." That's enough. You don't need to, so they will listen and they will look at what you're saying, 100%. So what I do usually is I send my deck to a friend of mine in private equity, somebody that's adjacent to what I need. So, for example, I would use someone in Paris that I know would not buy in the UK. And I say, listen, I have this deck for our client. If it was in France, would you buy it? Yes, no, and how much? And then you get free feedback because these people love to show how intelligent and smart they are and how they can be smarter than you and show you everything you're doing wrong. And then you fine tune. It's usually around valuation. They say, yeah, I think 12x is a little too much. I think it's 11x, stuff like that. Then you fine tune your deck and you send it to 3 private equity that you have properly identified. And by that time, if I did my work well, you get at least one letter of intent. If you're lucky, you get more than one. And if you're lucky, you start a price war. But that's it. That's the process, roughly.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. That was a lot of gold there for everyone. The one thing that I think was the biggest value that I think for myself and probably hopefully for a lot of other people here was the nominal EBITDA, right? That you said there, recalculating what happens after the sale. So, can you explain a little bit more about that? Because, like, from my side, what people will probably think as a general thing is like you've got a 5 year projection, right? Like, a 5 year plan. Year five, the EBITDA is going to be $100 million, right? And there's a 10x multiple, so it's going to be worth $1 billion, right? Let's just keep like numbers very simply.
Yeah.
So how would it be worked out? Or give me an example or whatever of.
Okay, I give you a very, very, very simple example, right? You're in November, you fired someone. You have 10 months of his salary in your EBITDA, in your bottom line, right? In your nominal EBITDA, you don't have it because you don't have to pay it next year. Very, very simple. I give you an example from real life. That's what happened to me. And because I didn't calculate the nominal EBITDA, they got the money, not me. Give you a very simple example why it's important and what it means. I had a lease internet line from Geneva to Singapore because I had a development center in Singapore. There was a lease line. It was costing somewhere around like 200,000 per year. It was a lot of money. And I'm a tech guy, so I don't get bullshitted by tech people. And when they explained to me why it was indispensable, they were right. It was indispensable. There was no way around. So after I sold, the LP, the GP of the LP of the private equity came and said, we're going to get rid of this 200,000. So I explained to him why it was not possible and why it was indispensable. So he said, okay. Guy was not a tech guy. I said, okay, I understand. Let me try something. He picked up his phone. He called my CTO and he said, hey, in 3 months, we're shutting down the internet between Geneva and Singapore. So the guy came rushing, spent an hour explaining to him why it was indispensable and why the whole company was going to collapse. The guy said, yeah, okay, I understand. Still, we're shutting it in 3 months. Obviously, they found a solution. We saved 200,000. And so 200,000 at 11 time EBITDA, it's 2.2 million for them instead of for me. It's that simple. And you have a list of 20, 50 actions you can do like that to calculate nominal EBITDA. You said, by the way, there is 200,000 there that is a cost that's going to be removed in 2 years if you do that, that, and that. So this one I'm going to put in my EBITDA, in my nominal EBITDA, because I want to be paid on that. That's a very simple example.
Yeah, I love that. That was great. Yeah, you've already got, like you said, the strategic plans in place. You just haven't got there yet. So you may as well be paid for that. And you're going to be on board anyway, obviously, to make sure that it's implemented as well as part of it. Because like you said, there's an earn out, right, of how it's structured a lot of the time.
Yeah,
so maybe talk about, go.
The big fight is going to be what year are they paying? Are they paying last year? Are they paying next year? Are they paying in 2 years? And that's where the negotiation happens.
Yeah.
Like where the big negotiation happens.
And let's talk about the structuring. So, you get to the agreement on the multiple and what it's worth, right? You talked about 85% cash, 15%, earn out elements there. So what should we be looking for? Because obviously a lot of cash is great, that, obviously having some ongoing, you said you made more out of the earn out. So is there sort of ranges of what you would recommend on how you exit from there?
So, first of all, usually in a PE deal, you don't sell 100% of the share. You sell 75, give or take, because they want you to stay on board as a minority shareholder. In terms of the earnout, all transactions, whether it's PE, real estate, buying a car or buying a dishwasher, it's all about inequality of information. The person who wins is the person who has the more information. And in a private equity deal, typically you know your company better than they do. So you have a little bit of advantage here in the level of information, but not so much because after the 6 months of due diligence, they're going to know sometimes a little more than you do about your own company, actually. But the one thing they know and that you don't, and it's that what makes them so successful, is they know what they bring to the table and you don't. And that's exactly why I made more money in my earnout that I made in the cash, because I had no idea how much value they would bring to the table.
Yeah, very smart because you're getting them on board and they're going to build it out. So don't just take the whole thing in cash, basically, because yeah,
Earnout are good unless you've been cheating them, and if they are good private equity, if you're cheating them, they'll know. Earnout are good. It's a motivation for you, and then it leads to super, super fun things. Because, for example, for the 2 years of earnout, my earnout was calculated, thank God, as a percentage of EBITDA and not as a capped 15%. Big mistake on their part. And for example, once a month, I would go to Paris for a board meeting from Geneva. So it was like $500 of train and hotel. And after 3, 4 months, they say, hey, you never expense that to me. I said, of course not. I said, why? Because if I expense it now, you give me $500. If I don't expense it in 2 years, you give me $5,000. Why would I expense it? So that we had lots of laughter. And when we did the final deal, the guy became a friend. He's still a very close friend. And he said, fuck, like that's so much money. I should have capped the earnout. And he said, would you have signed if I capped the earnout? So you're kidding. I didn't even think I would get a penny for the earnout. I said, you are so stupid buying this company. He said, fuck. And say, hey, you cannot blame me to play better than you at a game. You set the rules. But that was super friendly because at the end of the day, the reason I made lots of money is because they made way more. So everybody was happy.
yeah, no, I love it. Smart the way of structuring. I think that's the key part on
Stop calling it smart. Call it what it was, which is lucky.
lucky.
Nothing was that about that was me being start. It was the conjunction of two things. It was me being lucky and then being good guys. If the private equity I signed with were bad guys instead of good guys, would have been a very, very different story. And that's, by the way, why you should do a due diligence on the private equity.
Yeah,
Founders never do a due diligence on private equity. I'm amazed. People do 6 months due diligence of your company. You don't spend a week doing due diligence on them. And due diligence doesn't have to be hiring KPMG it's just basic stuff. The way I do due diligence with private equity, and private equity is listening and they'll laugh at me. I do something very simple. What do you want to assess? You want to assess two or three things. First, you want to assess that they don't do something I call fish and chip. I love this expression. Unfortunately, I didn't invent that. One of my clients did. They fish you with a very high valuation, and then they chip at it during due diligence. And that's extremely efficient because we are human beings. And during the due diligence, three things happen. First is it's exhausting. It's frustrating, is enraging, because these people who has been your best friends for 3 months of negotiation suddenly become mean and nitpicky, and you start hating them. In my case, I got super lucky because the guy warned me, said, by the way, for the next 6 months, we're not your friends. Just be prepared for that. Then you don't work on your company so much because you work on your due diligence. So the company is starting to suffer. And three, you start spending the money in your head, right? Just, okay, it's 100 million, starting spending it in my head and starting choosing my yacht and choosing my secondary home. And if you're an idiot like me, you actually start spending it in real life. And if at the end of the thing they say, well, you know what, we've been through due diligence, there is that we don't like, and it's not going to be 100, it's going to be 92, it's very hard to say no. So the private equity who tend to do that, usually they tend to do it every time or at least multiple times, so it's pretty easy to know. Then you want to know how they will treat you after the transaction. Will they treat you well or will they treat you badly? And third, you want to know if they actually have the money they say they have. So what I do is I first of all, I tell them, I say, okay, now I'm going to do a due diligence on you. They are completely fine with that. They are as puzzled as I am that people don't do that. And I say, I'm going to call people you actually bought because these people have all the answers you need, right? And so I say, give me 5 names of people you acquired that I can call. They give me 5 names. Obviously, I'm not calling any of these 5 names. And then I go on the website, see who they actually acquired, go on LinkedIn, contact them and say, hey, for a free beer, will you spend an hour with me? Tell me how did it go with private equity X. I'm yet to meet somebody who said, no, I'm not talking to you. People love to tell their stories. So.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. I love the getting the names from them, don't calling them, and doing the deep dive. You're right. It's
Well,
so
if they're smart, they do the same thing with your client, by the way. Say, oh, can you give me 5 clients we can call? And they call the other ones.
yeah, exactly. Um, just one thing as well for growth, right? Is like you mentioned M&A, mergers and acquisitions, right? So obviously you want to increase the EBITDA. That's another strategy. Now, whether you can do it organically with your cash flow, or whether you need to potentially raise capital. I know you said you don't ideally want to do that, but maybe you want to because that will get you to where you want to be. What are your thoughts on that process to sort of get you, yeah, to a bigger number, or where you'll be having a bigger exit?
3 very efficient ways to get growth: M&A, M&A, M&A. That's simple. M&A is so much simpler, faster, cheaper. M&A is free money, right? You get bank leverage for M&A. It's free money. There's no reason not to do it. So M&A as soon as you can and way, way, way sooner than you think.
Yeah, awesome. I love that. So true. And mate, you shared so much gold with us here, Alexis, here today. And I guess as we're starting to wrap up, right, on today, what one key piece of advice would you like to give to all the entrepreneurs watching and listening today?
Talk to people. Talk to people. Talk to people who've been there, done that. We are available. There's lots of us. Don't have to be necessary advisor. Take advice. That's the number one thing. And the other one is don't confuse what's urgent with what's important.
Yeah. Love it. So true. So important. Completely agree with those points. And yeah, there's always amazing people like yourself out there and everything. And yeah, we connected, yeah, through our networks. We learned about your awesome journey from various businesses to your, 100 million plus private equity exits. You're awesome guy. So knowledgeable. You shared like so much gold with us here today on the steps of what to do, what not to do here today, what to look out for, what to focus on, how to get the most benefit, how to do the due diligence on both sides, the business, the private equity side. I love it. It's been a very powerful show, and I'm sure I'm looking forward to getting into your current book, but also the new book that you're going to be coming out with that you mentioned here today as well. I think that will be really powerful too. So I'm looking forward to delving into those and reading and learning about them, mate. And I'm sure you continue to help guide founders towards their successful exits. And very grateful that we're connected, and look forward to partnering together as well. So, Alexis, how can people find you and get in touch or partner with you?
Just find me on LinkedIn. It's the easiest. I'm lucky enough that my name is not Paul Smith, so I'm easy to find on LinkedIn. Message me, but please, 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 when you do, because I get a lot of messages, just tell me where you're coming from. Tell me, oh, I listened to the podcast with Athin, and like it's helped me frame who I'm talking to. And I really, really try hard to answer everyone.
Yeah, beautiful. We'll definitely check out Alexis there on LinkedIn. That's the main place. And say you came from the Business Growth Show from myself. Who knows where anything will lead, right? And just learning from him and his books will be amazing as well. I think there's going to be so much gold in them just from what we've heard today. And mate, it's been a pleasure interviewing you. Thanks for being on the Business Growth Show.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Business Growth Show, where we talk about everything on business growth. And please like, subscribe, and leave us a 5-star review. You can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube as Athin Cassiotis, or visit my website, athincassiotis.com. And if you want to grow and scale your business, you'd reach out to me on any platform to see if we're a good fit. So until next time, remember that our business grows where we learn skills and take action using them in spite of fear. So let's create wealth and freedom together.